Welcome back to the Radio Academy podcast. I'm your host, Georgy Jamieson, and it's time to get your summer shorts on, as over August we're revisiting some best bits, highlights, and previously unheard footage in bite-sized podcasts for your summer listening. This week we hear from comedian, impressionist, and broadcaster Matt Forde in some previously unheard audio from our podcast in June. I chatted with Matt about his work with Absolute Radio, plus a podcast he does with Alice Levine called British Scandal, and I asked him how that came about.
So we started doing that about 3 years ago. And American Scandal is a show that Wondery do in America that is a phenomenal weekly, an episode every week looking at a scandal in American history. And they wanted to do a British version. So Alice and I were approached, and I'd never worked with Alice before. Obviously was aware of her as broadcasting and podcasting royalty.
She invented it. She kept telling us at the cross wires.
Exactly.
Yeah, she invented it. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. This is Alice Levine's world and we all just podcast in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's so good.
I love her.
So we were, and from day one, it's just been phenomenal. And working with her and bringing stories to life. And she's someone who really understands how to tell a story, how to emphasize things. And, the stories we've been given, and it's so well written, whether it's John Darwin and his harebrained scheme to fake his own death in his canoe, Nick Leeson and the collapse of Barings Bank, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss. We've covered all sorts of different types of scandals. The Gallagher brothers, Gaza, just... These are things that I'm interested in anyway. And I think it's such a fascinating way to present history and to tell stories. And when I think about how immersive audio is, what Wondery do, and the way that they create stories, the way they're written, presented, and then the use of audio. These are like immersive audio Hollywood blockbusters every week. It's unlike anything I'd ever worked on before. So it's such an immense privilege to be part of that show. And the reaction it has, and from people all around the world, is just mind-blowing. It's such a big deal. I just love it. It's great. Every week I think, I can't wait to read this story. It's brilliant. So much fun.
Rock and roll football on Absolute. That just must be a delight, being on the radio, talking about the footy.
Oh, man. It is an absolute joy, because I'm on with Matt Dyson, who co-hosts The Breakfast Show on Absolute, and he is a very special talent because he totally understands the role of a co-host, and he effectively is constantly teeing you up for jokes, usually innuendo-based. He just understands broadcasting. He's brilliant. He is really talented and very easy to work with, a good laugh. As a football fan, you're sat there on a Saturday, you're watching a game, and you're mucking about, telling rude jokes that are just about broadcastable between 2 and 5. And keeping people updated on the football. It's just, I can't believe how lucky I am.
Back again for the new season?
Yes, so we'll start again in August, and when the new football season starts, we get the summer off, and then we'll be back in our brand new studio at the Lantern, which is, I'm sure you've been to visit it. It's incredible.
I haven't yet. I've been promised a look round, and I can't wait, because apparently it's something really special.
Do you know what? When I would go to other, you'd go into interviews at LBC or whatever, and you'd look at other radio companies and the studios they had. And I loved One Golden Square, and I loved the history there, and a beautiful view over Soho Square, had a real atmosphere and history. But you'd look at other people's studios and think, studios have moved on a bit now. This thing is way beyond now. It's just class. It's great. It's big. It's bright. It allows you to do things with video content that we couldn't do before. It feels like the home of broadcasting.
And I know also on Absolute, you were very supported by them and the listeners, and very candid about the health issues that you've had. And just wanted to check, how are you feeling now? Are you okay? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. So I had cancer last year in the base of my spine, and had to have a fair bit of time away from the shows that I love making. Had the base of my spine removed along with the cancer on it. I obviously have to have scans every few months, so I get the results of my latest one in a couple of days. But certainly when I was discharged, I was left with the impression that it shouldn't recur anytime soon. So touch wood for that. Before it, I remember the last show I did on Absolute saying, I'm going to be off because of a health issue. And I was like, for some reason, I didn't want to say cancer on air. I don't know why. And then I just thought, actually, being opaque about it was less helpful. And I think people can stomach you telling them what it is. And it is actually better to be upfront, I think, when it's something really big and serious like that. So coming back, having the privilege of multiple platforms really to talk about that, and you're doing that, I think, in the hope that you're helping someone that would have been in your situation, that it would have been very helpful for me to certainly hear from people who have stomas, which I now have, and a colostomy bag, that was something that I was slightly hung up about. So now I feel a responsibility, not to talk about it all the time because people would get sick of the monotony of it and it wouldn't always be appropriate. But when you can get comedy out of it, and certainly initially on my return, to let people know about the experience I'd had, in the hope that someone listening who already has one or someone who's about to have one feels slightly less anxious about it. So it's at those moments, really, as a podcaster, as a radio presenter, as a comedian, that you really realise the privilege that a platform affords you beyond the perks that it already brings, that you're following your passion. You get the chance to actually do something really positive with it.
I think the listeners respect and appreciate the candour as well. You can't dress things up for them. They know. And like you say, if you're honest about these things, and you have been very open, that's when it reaches out. And that's when audio, in whatever form it takes, radio, podcasting, whatever, that we come back to that intimate medium. You really connect with people then, and especially when it is a subject like health. I think that was really important, what you did, and why when you came back, it was just as important. I'm back now, and you again spoke so openly about what had happened. And Absolute gave you the freedom and the space to do that.
Yes, and they've been great. And I think when you're talking about these things, I think people can tell when it's real, and they can tell when you're speaking from the heart. And obviously, Rock and Roll Football is a show where we get to be really silly and we get to have a lot of fun, and we embrace that, and we're a pair of wallies for 3 hours every Saturday. But people listening are listening as well to be entertained. They've got stuff going on in their own lives. So when they know you've been through something big, firstly, I think they want to know because they know that you've been away. But also, it helps you to talk about it on air. Although I don't think that is the most important thing, because you have to be careful not to be self-indulgent. But I think these things have to be done in the right way, and you have to speak from the heart. But I still think that it wouldn't be right for me to talk about it every week. You know, I can make comedy at my own expense, I think, and it's a new area for that. But I think also life has to go on. And you can address it from time to time, maybe when it's led to something funny where, you know, you get some, I don't like the word content. As a comedian, I always like the word material. But, you know, when it sparks a creative idea that makes for good radio or good podcasting, that's the way to do it. And then to have some time away from it as well for everyone's good. So I think, I don't know what the exact formula is, or even if there is one, but I think these things should always be authentic. And I think people can tell when they are. And the other thing is that people's reaction to you then is such a huge support, is the people who message you on social media, who message into the shows and to the podcasts. Just, I tell you what, you know, if you want to know what people are going to say about you when you're gone, get cancer, because you are effectively listening to your own funeral. You know, people say really nice things about you. And it's a lovely, you know, my life is richer for that. So then in a way, it's one of the greatest things that's happened to me, because I felt the outpouring of love from so many people that perhaps, you know, why else would they have told me that were I not in dire straits? So what a great positive to take out of it.
A big thank you once again to Matt Forde for being my guest. If you're listening to this on the day of release, then tomorrow, the 15th of August, is the last day to nominate yourself or a colleague for our Real World 30 Under 30. Go to radioacademy.org 30 Under 30 for all the details. This year, we're accepting a video or audio upload in answer to some of the questions instead of a written response, so you can really make your application stand out. If you're going along to our summer social in Birmingham tomorrow evening, 15th of August, then have a great time. And you'll get to meet the MD, as Aradnatar Leach will be interviewed about her first year in the role, followed by a Q&A. Go to radioacademy.org/events, where you'll find details of that and the Cardiff Summer Social on the 21st of August too. Next week, our summer short was recorded at the Crossed Wires Podcast Festival in Sheffield back in May, and you can hear some new footage of Greg James telling me all about his early broadcast days in BBC Local Radio. I'll see you next week.